I'm Alex.
I'm Jason. We're the Table Monkeys, and today we are going to talk about the growing sport of arm wrestling and how to introduce newer pullers to the sport. You may notice, like with apps like ArmBet and YouTube, arm wrestling is growing at a rapid rate.
Yep.
And if you have an arm wrestling club or go to an arm wrestling club around you, you might notice that there are newer pullers, or you might be one of those newer pullers yourself.
Exactly. So obviously we're still relatively newer pullers now, but as we've got 2 years in, we've got a little bit of experience and kind of managed this club here in Toronto. We've had newer pullers joining our club, and we've had to figure out how to teach newer pullers from ground zero, get them introduced to the world of arm wrestling. So we've had to try and figure out how to progress people from the start. Like, how do you teach them? Do you teach them how to hook, top roll first? You just focus on basic hand movements? What's the start, and how do you progress from there?
And you've got sort of different concepts on this all through the world of arm wrestling. Like two basic sort of opposite sides would be like Derek Smith is big on the idea of conditioning the elbow now. That's something that he's really been into, I guess, for about the last 6 months or a year, where he's like, okay, the newer pullers that come in, he just gets their elbows conditioned and teaches them how to hook, like, first and foremost, and then once that's out of the way, we can start working on everything else. Where like Devin is a big fan of teaching everybody how to top roll and use their hand first and be safer, I guess, more or less, and then after a while of doing that, your elbow's going to sort of slowly develop some conditioning and you become comfortable with the sport. So then he would condition the elbow later. Mm-hmm. So like Alex said, us having newer pullers and trying to think about all this, and with the YouTube channel and everything, we've sort of tried to start streamlining it and figuring out what is the right progression, right?
And obviously there is a hierarchy involved here, right? So there's certain things that are much more important to learn before you learn how to King's move, obviously, because we obviously had newer pullers come in and start King's moving on day one, which is definitely not recommended. So,
but again, it's also going to depend on who you are individually. Like for me, when I first started, because of my hernia, I couldn't really stand at the table, so it all of a sudden became comfortable to go down. So like posting top roll quickly turned into a King's move. It just where I felt I needed to be naturally. But again,
most pullers aren't going to be like that.
You want to work through the progression, and as much as you're going to have to adapt to everybody individually, there should be an outline or progression that we want to follow. So what is that exactly?
Yeah. All right, so as arm wrestling is kind of like a mini martial art, and martial arts uses a belt system to dictate their hierarchies, we're going to do the same thing here with arm wrestling, and we've kind of split it up into 3 different levels: white belt, blue belt, or black belt, which is basically like beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Each different belt has a different level of requirements. You teach different things to them, and
it's just a great way to sort of divide up the club. And obviously, as it advanced, like in more advanced martial arts, you might have like yellow belt, orange belt, purple, black, or brown, all that other stuff. So obviously this could advance too, but like Alex said, beginner, intermediate, and black belt. And if you go into a club, so one of the concepts that we've had that we're trying to work with here, that we want to introduce to the GTA next year, is the idea of a traveling arm wrestling club. So the concept would be that we pick, say, 6 different gyms that are like, actual weightlifting, powerlifting type gyms throughout the GTA, and then we bring the arm wrestling practice to them every 2 weeks. So on Monday at this gym, we bring a table or 2 tables and a bunch of handles and equipment. We show people some exercises they can do. We go through some techniques, and then we host an arm wrestling practice, and then we move that throughout 6 different gyms over a 2-week rotation. That's the concept we want to go with. Well, if we do that, when we go into the gyms, we want to be able to divide people up quickly so that we're not teaching black belt concepts to white belts or trying to teach white belt concepts to black belts, because both of those are going to be ineffective, right?
Right. So white belt concepts are obviously the most basic, like how do you move your hand, what are the fundamentals,
what's inside versus outside,
inside versus outside. Maybe teach them a basic hook, a basic top roll. Keep it simple, keep it light, nothing too intense.
Where like blue belt, you're going to have more of an understanding of the sort of the hill of arm wrestling technique, which if you've watched this channel before, you've probably heard us talk about.
Card up in the window.
Yeah, definitely card up in the window. And you've also are starting to develop your arm wrestling skills, so you have an idea that like you've got a good cut, but your riser is shit, or vice versa, so you're working to improve your weaknesses. And you've also, at this point, to be a blue belt, you should have some competition experience, whether that's just a super match that you were lucky enough to have, or you've been to a couple tournaments, but you should know what a real ready go feels like. You should have pulled with a real ref and understand some of the setup scenarios that are going to happen in a real competition.
Yeah. And then obviously you've also implemented arm wrestling training into your routine, and you've hit certain benchmarks in each fundamental lift to achieve the blue belt status.
Yeah.
All right, so and then obviously the next belt will be black belt, where you're now an expert. And for you to become a black belt, you definitely need way more competition experience, to the point where you're actually winning events, provincial or state, or at least podiuming at those events. And then you've also reached certain benchmarks in your training, like for example 50 kilos of back pressure is a number that's thrown around, and obviously that's going to be it's going to be dependent on your weight class
a little bit.
Yeah, but so those numbers and your fundamental lifts.
And you should also have an understanding of the moves to the point where you've got a couple either ace moves of yourself, or you've got a combination of moves that you know how to use and you know work for you.
Yep.
So this would be like sort of a hierarchy again. And the concept here is that you can walk into a group of arm wrestlers and either divide them into these categories quickly, or if they've already been divided into these categories, know how and what you should be training everybody in based on those categories.
Yeah.
So this is just a concept that we're introducing, the idea of these belts for arm wrestling. So let us know what you guys teach newer pullers when they first come to your club. Let us know how you started pulling. Did you start hook pulling first or top rolling? Just basically give us some feedback on what you think about this belt system.
Yep, and I'm going to go deeper into each belt, white belt, blue belt, black belt, in future videos, and give a kind of rough lesson plan of what we would do for each system there. And then that's kind of what we would be doing when we start this traveling gym. So let us know what you think about that.
Give us some feedback on the traveling gym. Is that something you'd like to see visit your gym? And subscribe, smash that bell, do all those things.
Monkeys out.
Peace.